2 years old. I kept repeating that number in my head as I drove through downtown Chicago that morning, my Honda Civic packed with balloons, streamers, and a custom Spider-Man cake from the bakery on Wells Street. 2 years since I became a mom. 2 years since everything changed. Jake's birthday had been circled on my calendar for weeks. Even though Michael and I weren't together anymore, I wanted this day to be perfect for our son. I'd spent my last paycheck from the diner on decorations and split the cost of the bounce house rental with Michael. The party was at his place in Lincoln Park, which stung a little, but I told myself it didn't matter. What mattered was Jake having the best day ever. I pulled up to the familiar brick townhouse around 10 in the morning, arms full of party supplies. The same house where I used to live, where I painted the nursery yellow because we didn't know if Jake would be a boy or a girl. Now it felt like visiting a museum of my old life. Michael opened the door, wearing a clean button-down and jeans. He looked good, I had to admit. "Hey, Sarah, you didn't have to bring all this stuff." "I wanted to," I said, balancing the cake box carefully. "Where should I put this?" "Kitchen's probably best." He stepped aside, and I caught a glimpse of her in the background. Rebecca, his new wife of 6 months. She was arranging flowers in a vase, wearing a sundress that probably cost more than my rent. She looked up when I walked in, gave me a tight smile, then went back to her flowers. The house looked different, cleaner, more organized. The walls that used to be covered with our photos now displayed tasteful artwork. I tried not to think about it too much. Jake came running into the kitchen, his dark hair still messy from sleep, wearing his favorite dinosaur pajamas. "Mama!" he squealed, throwing his tiny arms around my legs. "Happy birthday, baby boy." I scooped him up, breathing in that sweet smell of his shampoo. This was why I was here. This little person who called me Mama, who still reached for me when he was scared, who laughed at my silly faces. "Did you bring my cake?" he asked, pointing at the box. "Of course I did. It's got Spider-Man on it, just like you wanted." His eyes lit up the way only a 2-year-old's can. Pure joy. No complications, no hurt feelings, just happiness about cake and superheroes. The next hour passed in a blur of setting up. I hung streamers while Michael dealt with the bounce house guys in the backyard. Rebecca mostly stayed out of my way, which I appreciated. I could hear her on the phone with the caterer, discussing arrival times and setup details. She was efficient. I'll give her that. By noon, guests started arriving. Michael's brother Dave showed up with his wife and kids. His parents came next, giving me polite hugs and asking how work was going. Then came neighbors, some of Michael's coworkers, people I recognized but hadn't spoken to in months. I kept waiting for my sister Emma to show up, or my mom, or at least my friend Lisa who'd promised to come. But as the living room filled with people, I realized I was the only one there from my side. Had there been some miscommunication? I pulled out my phone to check, but there were no messages. Jake was having a blast, running around in his new birthday outfit, a little polo shirt and khakis that made him look like a tiny businessman. He kept coming back to me, showing me his new toys, wanting me to watch him on the bounce house. Every time he smiled at me, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, but something felt off. Conversations would stop when I walked by. People were friendly enough, but there was a distance that hadn't been there before. I was the ex now, not Michael's wife, not part of the family anymore. I tried to shake off the feeling and focus on Jake. He was what mattered. He was having the perfect second birthday, surrounded by people who loved him, eating cake and playing with new toys. That was enough for me. At least I thought it was enough until I went to refill the juice pitcher and heard Rebecca's voice behind me, cold and sharp as winter wind off Lake Michigan. "You need to leave now. This party is for family only." The juice pitcher slipped in my hands, and I had to grip it tighter to keep from dropping it. I turned around slowly, sure I'd misheard, but Rebecca was standing there in her perfect sundress, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into her house by mistake. "I'm sorry, what?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "I said you need to leave. This is a family party." Her voice was steady, matter of fact, like she was telling me the weather forecast. I looked around the kitchen, hoping to see Michael somewhere, anyone who might step in and clarify this insane situation. But it was just me and her, and the sound of children laughing in the backyard felt suddenly far away. I am family, I said quietly. I'm Jake's mother. She tilted her head slightly, like she was considering this. You're Michael's ex-girlfriend. That's different. Ex-girlfriend. Not Jake's mother. Not the woman who'd carried him for 9 months, who'd stayed up every night when he had colic, who'd rushed him to the emergency room when he had that fever last month. Just the ex-girlfriend. My hands started shaking. I helped pay for this party. I bought the cake. And I'm sure Michael appreciates that. But it's time for you to go. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a slap. She wasn't angry or emotional. She was just done with me. Like I was a task to be completed, a problem to be solved. Where's Michael? I managed to ask. He's outside with the kids. Do you really want to make a scene in front of everyone? That's when I understood. She'd waited until he was outside. She'd planned this moment, calculated it. She knew exactly what she was doing. I set the pitcher down on the counter with trembling hands. Through the window, I could see Jake on the bounce house, his little face bright with joy. Michael was standing nearby, talking to his brother, completely unaware of what was happening inside his kitchen. I'm not going to make a scene, I said, but I'm not leaving without saying goodbye to my son. Actually, you are. Her voice was steel now. If you don't leave quietly, I'll tell everyone you're being disruptive. Is that really how you want people to remember Jake's birthday? The threat hung in the air between us. I could picture it. Rebecca telling everyone I'd caused drama, that I couldn't handle Michael moving on, that I was the crazy ex who ruined her stepson's party. The story would spread through Michael's family, his friends, his co-workers. It would become the truth. My throat felt like it was closing up. I'd been to therapy after the divorce, learned about boundaries and self-worth and not letting people walk all over me. But standing there in that kitchen, I felt 2 inches tall. Fine, I whispered. I walked toward the back door, thinking I'd at least wave goodbye to Jake, but Rebecca stepped in front of me. Front door, she said simply. So I did the walk of shame through the living room, past Michael's parents, past the neighbors, past all the people who'd watched me grow up with Michael, who'd celebrated when Jake was born. Some of them looked confused, maybe wondering why I was leaving so early. Others just looked uncomfortable, like they knew something was wrong but didn't want to get involved. I grabbed my purse from the front hall table and walked out into the October afternoon. The door closed behind me with a soft click that felt like a period at the end of a sentence. Standing on the sidewalk, I could still hear the party going on. Jake's laughter mixed with other kids' voices, the sound of the bounce house creaking. Normal party sounds from a normal family gathering that I was no longer part of. I got in my car and sat there for a minute, hands gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. How's the party going? Jake having fun? I stared at the message, not sure how to answer. How do you explain that you've just been uninvited from your own son's birthday party? That you've been reduced to nothing more than an inconvenience? I started the engine and pulled away from the curb, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the Starbucks on Diversey and parked in the lot. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what to do next, because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. I sat in that Starbucks parking lot for 20 minutes, watching families walk by with their kids, everyone looking happy and normal. A mom pushed a stroller past my car, laughing at something her toddler said. Another family headed toward the playground across the street, the dad carrying a diaper bag, and the mom holding a little girl's hand. My phone kept buzzing with texts from friends asking how the party was going. Lisa had sent a photo of herself at brunch, saying she was sorry she couldn't make it. Emma texted asking if Jake liked his present. Normal questions from people who assumed I was having a normal day at my son's birthday party. I wanted to text back the truth. Rebecca threw me out. I was uninvited from my own son's birthday. But how do you type those words? How do you explain that level of humiliation to people who weren't there? Instead, I opened my banking app. If I didn't belong at that party, then neither did my money. I'd contributed $300 toward the bounce house rental, another $50 for decorations, and $60 for the cake. $410 I couldn't really afford on my diner salary, but I'd done it anyway because I wanted Jake to have the best birthday possible. My fingers moved across the screen, calling the rental company first. Hi, this is Sarah Chen. I need to cancel my payment for the bounce house rental today. The order number is... The woman on the phone was confused. "But ma'am, the equipment was already delivered this morning. I understand, but I'm no longer part of the event. I need to stop my payment." 20 minutes later, I'd canceled everything. The bounce house company said they'd have to go collect their equipment immediately. The bakery couldn't take the cake back, but they stopped the charge. The party store where I'd bought decorations was less understanding, but eventually agreed to a partial refund. I sat back in my car, feeling empty and vindicated at the same time. Let them explain to the kids why the bounce house was suddenly being packed up. Let them figure out what to do when half the party supplies disappeared. Let Rebecca deal with the chaos she'd created. But then, I thought about Jake. He'd probably cry when they took away the bounce house. He'd wonder where his Spider-Man cake went. He'd look around for me and I wouldn't be there. That's when the tears finally came. Not the angry tears I'd expected, but these deep, gut-wrenching sobs that felt like they came from somewhere I didn't know existed. I was crying for the marriage that had ended, for the family that had fallen apart, for the little boy who deserved better than parents who couldn't figure out how to be in the same room together. I was crying for myself too, if I'm being honest, for the woman who'd been told she didn't belong at her own son's birthday party, for the mother who'd been reduced to nothing more than an inconvenience. My phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. What was there to say? But on the fourth ring, I picked up. "Sarah? What the hell is going on? The bounce house guys just showed up saying they're taking the equipment back, and the bakery called asking about the cake payment." His voice was stressed, confused. I could hear party noise in the background, people talking, kids playing. "Ask your wife," I said simply. "What? Rebecca? What does she have to do with this?" "She threw me out, Michael. Told me the party was for family only." Silence. In the background, I could hear Jake calling for his daddy, asking where the bounce house was going. "She... What? No, that's not... Hold on." I heard him talking to someone, his voice muffled like he'd covered the phone. Then Rebecca's voice sharp and defensive, though I couldn't make out the words. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was outside and... You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You let her plan this whole thing, and you let her decide I didn't belong there. That's not fair. I would never... But you did. You stood outside playing with the kids while she told me I wasn't family. You let her throw me out of my son's birthday party." More silence. Then Jake's voice, closer now. "Daddy, where's Mama? I want to show her my new truck." Something broke open in my chest. "I'm coming to get him." "What?" "Sarah, no. We can work this out. Come back. We'll figure it out. I'm coming to get my son. Have him ready." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. I'd been humiliated, dismissed, and treated like I didn't matter. But Jake mattered, and I was still his mother, no matter what Rebecca thought. I started the car and drove back to Lincoln Park. The bounce house was already gone from the backyard, leaving a sad rectangle of flattened grass. Some of the guests were standing around looking confused, probably wondering why the party had suddenly fallen apart. I parked in front of the house and walked up to the door. I didn't knock. I rang the doorbell like I was any other visitor because apparently that's what I was now. Michael answered, looking tired and frustrated. Behind him, I could see Rebecca standing in the hallway, her arms crossed, her face tight with anger. "I'm here for Jake," I said. "Sarah, please. Can we just talk about this? Where is he?" Michael hesitated, then called over his shoulder. "Jake, come here, buddy. Your mom's here." Jake came running, still wearing his birthday outfit, his face sticky with cake frosting. He launched himself into my arms like he always did, like I was the safest place in the world. "Mama, look at my new truck." He held up a red fire engine, eyes bright with excitement. "It's beautiful, baby. Are you ready to go home with Mama? Can we bring cake?" I looked at Michael, who nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. He came back with a paper plate covered in foil, a slice of Spider-Man cake underneath. "Sarah," he started, but I was already walking away, Jake on my hip, heading back to my car. "We'll talk later," I said without turning around. "Right now, I'm taking my son home." Back at my apartment in Rogers Park, I set Jake down in the living room and watched him run straight to his toy box. The place felt different with him here. warmer somehow. It was just a one-bedroom with a pull-out couch where he slept when he stayed over. But seeing him there in his little birthday outfit made it feel like home. "Mama, can we have my cake now?" he asked, holding up the foil-wrapped plate. "Of course we can, birthday boy. But first let me show you something." I'd been saving this moment for weeks. In my bedroom closet, I had a backup cake, a small round one with chocolate frosting that I'd made myself. I'd also bought a few extra presents, just in case. Call it mother's intuition, but something had told me to be prepared. I brought out the homemade cake and set it on my coffee table. Jake's eyes went wide. "2 cakes?" "2 cakes for my 2-year-old, I said, lighting the candles. "Make a wish, baby." He closed his eyes tight, his little face scrunched up in concentration. Then he blew out the candles with all the force his tiny lungs could muster, sending wax flying across the frosting. "Good job. What did you wish for?" "I wished for trucks and dinosaurs and ice cream." I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had all day. "Those are very good wishes." We ate cake with our fingers, sitting cross-legged on the carpet. Jake got frosting in his hair and on his shirt, but I didn't care. He was happy, and that was all that mattered right now. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since we got home. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. I'd turned it face down on the kitchen counter and tried to ignore it. Whatever drama was happening back at the party, I didn't want to know about it. "Can we play with my new truck?" Jake asked, already pulling the fire engine out of its box. "Absolutely. But first, let's get you into some play clothes." I helped him change into his favorite dinosaur t-shirt and shorts, the ones that were getting too small, but he refused to let me donate. He looked more like himself now, less like the little businessman from the party. We spent the next hour on the floor, making roads out of couch cushions and driving the fire engine around imaginary emergencies. Jake narrated the whole thing in his toddler voice, complete with siren sounds and dramatic rescues of stuffed animals. "The bear is stuck in the tree, Mama. The fire truck has to save him." "Oh no. Good thing we have such a brave firefighter," I said, watching him maneuver the truck with intense concentration. This was what I'd been missing at the party. Not the formal celebration with its perfect decorations and scheduled activities, but these quiet moments of pure joy. Jake being completely himself, creative and silly and free. Around 4 o'clock, I made us grilled cheese sandwiches and chocolate milk. We had a picnic on the living room floor, the coffee table pushed aside to make room for our blanket fort. Jake ate with his usual toddler enthusiasm, getting crumbs everywhere and asking for more milk every few minutes. "Mama, why did we leave the party?" he asked suddenly, his sandwich halfway to his mouth. My heart skipped. I'd been hoping he wouldn't ask, but of course he would. 2-year-olds notice everything. "We wanted to have our own special time together," I said carefully. "Just me and you. But Daddy was there, and all the people." "I know, baby. But sometimes it's nice to have a quiet celebration too. Do you like being here with me?" He nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. Can we watch Cars?" "Of course we can." I put on his favorite movie, and we snuggled on the couch. Jake curled up against my side with his fire truck clutched in his hands. The afternoon light filtered through my windows, casting everything in a golden glow. For the first time all day, I felt peaceful. My phone buzzed again from the kitchen. Then again. I could hear it even over the movie, but I didn't move. Whatever was happening in that other world, the world of formal parties and new wives and family politics, could wait. Right now, I had everything I needed right here on this couch. Jake fell asleep halfway through the movie, his head heavy on my shoulder. I stayed perfectly still, not wanting to wake him. In sleep, he looked so small and perfect, his dark eyelashes resting against his cheeks, his little hand still gripping the fire truck. This was worth it, I realized. All the pain and humiliation from earlier, all the drama I'd probably caused by leaving, all the difficult conversations that were surely coming. It was all worth it for this moment, for the chance to give my son a birthday that was about love instead of performance, about connection instead of perfection. The sun was setting outside my windows when he finally stirred. He looked up at me with sleepy eyes and smiled. "Mama, was this the best birthday ever?" I kissed the top of his head. "It absolutely was, baby. The very best." I woke up Sunday morning to my phone buzzing like an angry bee on the nightstand. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, 4 voicemails. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the notifications. Michael had called 6 times between 8 and 11 p.m. His mom had texted twice. Even Dave, Michael's brother, had sent a message. What happened yesterday? Michael's really upset. I made coffee in my small kitchen while Jake slept on the pull-out couch, still exhausted from his big day. Through the window, I could see Lake Michigan in the distance, gray and choppy under the October sky. The sight usually calmed me, but today it just reminded me how small my world had become. The first voicemail was from Michael, his voice tight with frustration. Sarah, I need to know what happened yesterday. Rebecca said you just left without saying anything. The party was a disaster after you took Jake. People were asking questions. My mom wants to know why you didn't say goodbye. Call me back. I deleted it without listening to the rest. The second one was different. His voice was quieter, more careful. Look, I know something went wrong yesterday. I'm trying to piece it together. Rebecca's not talking about it, but I can tell she's upset. Some of the guests said you seemed upset when you left. I want to understand. Jake keeps asking where you went. I set the phone down and stared at it. Part of me wanted to call him back, to explain everything, to make him understand how his wife had humiliated me. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger since yesterday, wasn't sure I owed him that explanation. Jake padded into the kitchen in his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up in all directions. Mama, I'm hungry. Pancakes? I asked, already reaching for the mix. Yes, with chocolate chips. I was grateful for the distraction. Making pancakes was simple, normal, something I could do with my eyes closed. Jake sat at my small kitchen table, swinging his legs and chattering about his new fire truck, about the cake we'd shared, about whether dinosaurs liked pancakes. My phone rang while I was flipping the second batch, Michael's name on the screen. Should I answer it? I asked Jake, even though he was 2 and couldn't possibly understand the complexity of the situation. Answer what? He asked, syrup already on his chin. I let it go to voicemail. Lisa called around noon. Girl, I need details. Emma said you left Michael's party early and wouldn't answer your phone. What happened? I found myself telling her everything. The whole humiliating story poured out while Jake played with his toys in the living room. How Rebecca had cornered me in the kitchen. How she'd made me feel like an intruder at my own son's party. How I'd walked out with whatever dignity I had left. She said what? Lisa's voice was incredulous. Family only? You literally created that family? I know, but... No buts, Sarah. That's messed up. And where was Michael during all this? Outside with the kids. He had no idea. That's even worse. He should have been paying attention. After I hung up with Lisa, I finally listened to the rest of Michael's voicemails. The third one was the one that got to me. Sarah, I talked to a few people who were there yesterday. Mrs. Henderson from next door said she saw you leave looking upset. She said you looked like you were crying. I'm starting to think there's more to this story than Rebecca told me. I'm sorry if something happened. I should have been more aware of what was going on. Can we please talk? Not about us, just about Jake. He deserves better than this mess. His voice cracked a little on the last part, and I felt that familiar tug in my chest. The one that reminded me we'd been good together once, before everything fell apart. Before the fights, and the silence, and the final realization that we wanted different things. I almost called him back then. Almost picked up the phone and explained everything. But then I remembered standing in his kitchen, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life, while his wife told me I didn't belong at my own son's birthday party. Instead, I took Jake to the park. We spent the afternoon at Montrose Beach, even though it was too cold for swimming. Jake ran around the playground while I sat on a bench, watching him climb and slide and laugh with other kids. A few times, other parents tried to make conversation, but I wasn't in the mood for small talk. "Mama, push me!" Jake called from the swings. I spent the next 20 minutes pushing him higher and higher, listening to him squeal with delight. This was what mattered, I told myself. Not the phone calls or the voicemails or the mess I'd left behind. Just this little boy who trusted me completely, who looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. When we got home, there was a text from Michael. "I know you're avoiding my calls. I get it, but we need to talk about custody arrangements. I can't have Jake disappearing in the middle of parties. Text me back when you're ready. I stared at the message for a long time. Custody arrangements. Legal language. The threat was subtle but clear. That night, after Jake was asleep, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea and finally called Michael back. "Thank you for calling," he said, his voice formal. "We need to discuss what happened yesterday." "Do we?" I asked. "Or do you need me to apologize for embarrassing your wife?" "That's not fair, Sarah. I'm trying to understand. Your wife threw me out of Jake's birthday party. She told me it was for family only. She made me feel like I was trespassing in my own son's life." Silence. Then, "She said you left on your own. She said you seemed upset about something but wouldn't talk about it." "Of course she did. So you're saying she's lying?" "I'm saying ask yourself why I would lie about something like this. What would I gain from making it up?" More silence. In the background, I could hear the TV, some late-night talk show. Normal Sunday night sounds from a normal family home. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I should have been paying better attention. I should have made sure you felt welcome. But you didn't. And now you're threatening me with custody talk." "I'm not threatening you. I'm just saying we need clear boundaries. Jake can't be confused about when he's supposed to be where." Jake wasn't confused yesterday. He was perfectly happy spending his birthday with his mother. After you canceled half the party. After your wife decided I didn't belong there. We were going in circles. The same old pattern that had destroyed our marriage. Both of us convinced we were right. Neither of us willing to give an inch. "I have to go," I said finally. "Jake's sleeping." "Sarah, wait. I do want to work this out. For Jake's sake." "So do I. But not tonight." I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow I'd have to deal with all of this. The lawyers, the custody schedules, the careful navigation of a broken family. But tonight, I just wanted to sit in my quiet kitchen and remember how Jake had looked at me when I'd sung happy birthday to him, like I was the only person in the world who mattered. The next few weeks changed everything. I stopped answering Michael's calls immediately. Instead, I'd let them go to voicemail and respond with texts when I was ready. I started documenting everything. Every pickup time, every conversation, every arrangement we made. My friend Lisa, who worked as a paralegal, had told me to keep records of everything. "Trust me," she'd said over coffee at our usual spot on Broadway. "If this gets messy, you'll want paper trails." It felt strange at first, treating the father of my child like a business contact, but it was also liberating. No more walking on eggshells, no more trying to keep the peace at my own expense. I was polite, but firm, and I stopped apologizing for things that weren't my fault. The first real test came 2 weeks later when Michael called about Halloween. Jake was supposed to spend the weekend with him, and there was some party Rebecca wanted to take him to. "It's just a neighborhood thing," Michael said. Very casual. Rebecca thought it would be fun for Jake to trick-or-treat with the other kids on the block. "That sounds nice," I said, putting him on speaker while I folded laundry. "What time should I drop him off?" "Actually, Rebecca was wondering if you wanted to come too. You know, for Jake's sake." I stopped folding. "She was wondering that?" "Yeah. She feels bad about the birthday party thing. She wants to make it right. The birthday party thing. Like it was some minor misunderstanding instead of the most humiliating moment of my year. I appreciate the invitation," I said carefully, "but I think I'll pass. Jake will have fun with you guys." "Are you sure? It might be good for all of us to try again." "I'm sure, but thank you." I could hear the disappointment in his voice, but I didn't let it change my mind. I'd learned my lesson about trying to fit into spaces where I wasn't truly welcome. Instead, I made my own plans. I took Jake trick-or-treating the Thursday before Halloween, just the two of us walking through my neighborhood in Rogers Park. He was dressed as a dinosaur, his favorite costume, and he chattered nonstop about all the houses we visited. "Look, Mama, they have a skeleton on their porch." "Very spooky," I agreed, helping him navigate the steps in his bulky costume. We hit maybe 15 houses, just enough to fill his little pumpkin bucket with candy. Then we went home and watched Monsters, Inc., while he sorted his loot on the living room floor. "This is the best Halloween ever," he announced, holding up a fun-sized Snickers bar. "Even better than the big party this weekend?" He looked at me seriously, his 3-year-old face thoughtful. "I like it just with you, Mama." Something in my chest loosened, I'd been so worried about him missing out, about not being able to give him the big experiences that Michael and Rebecca could provide. But maybe what he needed wasn't bigger. Maybe what he needed was just me, fully present, fully his. I started planning other traditions too. Sunday morning pancakes became our thing. We'd make them together, Jake standing on his little step stool, helping me measure flour and crack eggs. He was terrible at it, getting eggshells in the batter and flour everywhere, but he was so proud of helping. Saturday afternoons we'd go to the Lincoln Park Zoo, even in the cold Chicago winter. Jake loved the penguins and the polar bears, and I loved watching him press his face against the glass, fascinated by everything. Why don't penguins get cold, Mama? They have special feathers that keep them warm, like wearing a really thick coat. Can I have penguin feathers? I think regular coats work better for little boys. These conversations, these simple moments, became the foundation of our new life. I wasn't trying to compete with Michael's house or Rebecca's resources. I was just trying to be present, to give Jake something he couldn't get anywhere else. My complete attention, my unconditional love, my total commitment to his happiness. The custody arrangement got formalized through lawyers, which was expensive but necessary. Every other weekend, 2 weeks in the summer, alternating holidays. It was all very official and clean. Nothing like the messy, emotional negotiations we'd tried to do on our own. Michael tried to talk to me about it when he came to pick up Jake one Friday evening. "This doesn't have to be so formal," he said, standing in my doorway while Jake ran to get his overnight bag. "We can work things out between us." "I think this is better," I said. "Clearer for everyone. It feels like you're punishing me for what happened at the party." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself." He looked like he wanted to say more, but Jake came running back with his dinosaur backpack, ready for his weekend with Daddy. "Bye, Mama," he said, giving me a hug that nearly knocked me over. "Bye, baby. Have fun with Daddy. I'll see you Sunday." I watched them drive away, Michael's BMW disappearing around the corner. 2 years ago, watching my son leave would have broken my heart. Now it just felt like part of the rhythm of our new life. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my sister Emma and my friend Lisa and invited them over for dinner. We ordered Thai food and opened a bottle of wine and talked about everything, except Michael and Rebecca and custody arrangements. "You look different," Emma said, studying my face. "Happier." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I'm finally figuring out who I am as just me, not as half of a couple." "Single mom Sarah is pretty badass," Lisa added, raising her wine glass. "Jake's lucky to have you." Later, after they'd gone home, I sat in my quiet apartment and realized something. I wasn't waiting for my life to begin anymore. I wasn't hoping for Michael to come back, or for Rebecca to accept me, or for some perfect family reunion that would never happen. I was living. Right now, in this moment, in this small apartment with its pull-out couch and its view of the lake. I was Jake's mother, completely and fully, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.